Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Yeong-Han from Hongik University. Thank you for your presentations. We first listened to the presentation from Professor Kim Seung-Wan and Dr. Lee Tae-ui. Seems that the two speakers approached the same topic from slightly different perspectives, which was very interesting. And Mr. Julian Leslie is the person we invited from ESO, as we heard that they're going to achieve carbon neutrality by 2025. So we had a lot of questions to ask, but he had busy schedule, so we could not be with him for this panel discussion. First of all, Professor Chon Ho-young and Dr. Kwanghoon are the panelists. First, Professor Chon, would you start discussion? Nice to meet you all. I am Chon Ho-young from Chonnam National University. Thank you for your presentations. For carbon neutrality, direction of electricity system, I'm going to talk about this topic. In Korea, the solar and wind power capacity is currently 19 gigawatt and the future plan is 58 gigawatt. Today we received an announcement regarding this, but I didn't actually hear the accurate numbers. But over 100 gigawatt of renewable energy will be supplied from wind power and solar power, which was I think a very ambitious target. And the cap of RPS was adjusted upward. In the existing level, the 10% was the cap level, but it was further heightened. So the government showed the intention to meet the requirements from NDC. So NDC target, which was adjusted, is quite ambitious target, and in order to achieve the target, the Korean government showed strong willingness and commitment. If we achieve that in the future, then Korean capacity of wind power and solar power will be 1.5 times that of the peak capacity and 2 times the level of usual energy capacity. And the previous speaker said the winter is coming. I would like to say winter is coming sooner than expected. By 2030, the energy capacity supplied from wind power and solar power will further increase. Then, in 2030, we will have significant level of energy transition towards renewable energy. So we have no choice but to see significant changes in the existing electricity market. I'd like to talk about 3 issues. First of all, in the electricity market, we have to increase competition. Topic of this session is the preparations required for electricity market to achieve carbon neutrality. It means that the role and function of the market is very important to achieve carbon neutrality. As for market function, the first thing we think of is competition. There are areas that can adopt competition and there are other areas that cannot adopt competition. As for grid business, it has quite a lot of characteristics as public goods. And for some other areas, we need to make them independent. So by adopting competition in the areas that can adopt competition, we can enhance the efficiency. And under CVP, generators do not proceed with bidding, and they recover the amount of their investment. So in the current electricity market, competition is quite limited. As for renewable energy, the marginal cost is zero, so they may not need the same competitive bidding, but first of all, we will have to select the site for renewable energy power generation and select the renewable energy generators and operators with the right competence. And we have to create an environment for those renewable energy generators and operators to compete against each other and ensure a certain fixed level of revenue for the market participants. In terms of sales or retailing, we need flexibility. The power generation sector will have to accept different types of energies. They will have to back up for the demand, the imbalance between demand and supply. We may be able to use ICT so that the operators will be able to aggregate the demand into a certain virtual power plant system and meet the demand. And the level of incentive is the key in this change. However high the competition might be and however good the players may be in the market, if we don't ensure a certain level of incentive, then the market will not work effectively. If renewable energy is supplied to a higher level, then we will need higher demand for reserve. So the value of the reserve will increase. So as for flexible demand resources, we need to provide quite strong incentive to enhance flexibility in demand.
The second point is that something that discussed a lot, we have to curtail the output. By 2030, the solar power generation will increase by 2 times in terms of demand by 2030. And also, the most operators, generators will need to work. So that will be a large amount of curtailment on output. In Jeju Island, 3% of curtailment happened, and this year that figure is expected to go up to 9%. And 10% of renewable is curtailed, then it means that the price of renewable generations will increase by 3%. And power system with high mix, like proportion of renewables, it would be very burdened. So we have to make demand flexible. So we have to make the demand very flexible in term, like based on the, if we use TOU, if there is a curtailment on output, then the marginal cost is zero. So very aggressive and attractive TOU system could be presented to the consumers. And according to research, the elasticity of price for power, the price is go up by 1%, the demand is going down by 0.4%. And it was a research in a limited circumstances, but we could TOU in managing demand that presents some evidence for the approach. So we could think about the demand curtailment. And the third point is sector coupling. Very excessive generation is done and all the generation reserves cannot be consumed in the system. So we need to make a shift to hydrogen for heating or some other power energy, and it means that we have to effectively manage the resources. And the next point is about the supply stability. Only this year, we have seen very serious blackout in Texas. In China now, it is experiencing very serious disruption in electricity supply. So if our electricity security undermines how seriously the society will be affected, it was presented. The renewables, if it is connected to the system, it could cause high uncertainty. And just general level of variables of the renewables, then we could address. But there is some unexpected weather events like heavy rains or the sun is not coming out, so we could not operate the solar system, then it could have a very serious impact. It could happen not often, but if it happens, then it could cause a high amount of cost on our society. So it is not ignorable. As a backup for renewables, we are considering ESS and hydrogen storage system. But if there is some unexpected thing happens, then actually ESS is just a carrier, so it cannot deal with all the serious issues. If we want to maintain very stable and robust system, we have to become very carbon neutral. So nuclear and LNG, those we have to put a polio to include those sector in order to address the unexpected issues and maintain the very robust and stable system. Thank you for your comments. We have Kwanghoon, member of Energy Transition Forum. Please. Thank you for inviting me. Very good presentations. Thank you for your presentations. The three presenters dealt with different issues. Before touching very detailed issues of presentations, I will talk about some various things, various issues. Like the presenters dealt with various issues, but the one thing common from different presentations were about we have to open the electricity market. If we do not open the market, then we cannot deal with all the new technologies, and we cannot gain the resources to adopt new targets. Actually, the NDC has heightened and tightened. But if we do not have the resource, actually the resources is in market. If we do not have resource, then we could not implement the plan. So I feel some gaps between the reality and the plan. About 90% of the public or 100% of the politicians, they are talking about that we need to fix the price of electricity. And if there is some changes in the electricity market, it is going to be a way of privatization, so it should not be done. These are the opinions of 90% of the public. But on the other hand, the NDC has been enhanced. I don't know about the exact figures, but various market program were explained a lot today. But we are repeating this process. We have been repeating this process for a long time. I think experts should have this one voice. It means that the electricity is not a matter of politics. In the past, efficiency and the price was the issue. However, these days, if we do not open the electricity market, we could not survey. It is not a matter of choice, but a matter of must do in terms of technology and in terms of the development. So we have to have one voice and we have to call for the politics to bring changes. Actually, we are a bit late. So we have to lay a foundation for achieving the carbon neutrality. We have to restore the path that we need to move forward. The detailed programs, if we talk about the detailed programs, then we just collect some successful cases in presentations, and some people are inject those projects into the Korean market, but it would not work in Korea. And like smart grid is one example. So I think that we should not repeat that errors that we have done before. And we invited Julian Wesley from NNGES. Oh, but he speaks so fast, and the actually interpreter, I think it was very difficult for her to interpret. So we have to look at the cases of the UK, because we are totally different from the advanced nations. We are quite isolated connection, like system, power system. But UK has interconnected system and synchronized system. So our system is quite isolated. In this regard, the renewables were taking account about less than 40%, less than about 38%. And the UK has put a lot of effort to achieve those 38%. He explained that, and in order to make up the insufficient inertia, the UK collected and connected all together, and tens of units of very obsolete and not used generators were combined all together. In terms of inertia, it is 12.5 GVS. Is about tantamount to 5 generator units of core-fired generation. As we are isolated, we need more aggressive and very radical approaches to expand renewables. And that radical approaches actually, in terms of new technologies, if there is no market to pay for kind of due charges, and it is useless. And island, is also the case for the island. The UK has opened its market 30 years ago, so it's difficult for us to follow suit of the UK. Not as much as the UK, but Ireland opened its wholesale market in 1997, but put a lot of limits on competition. The island built some consensus that the wind power could not be expanded in physically, so it went it started seeking for a complete competition market, and after that, Ireland was able to increase the wind power generation up to 40%. A physically isolated situation, actually, in order to overcome that limits, we have to open the electricity market, only the selling market. If we do not open the market immediately, all the policies are becoming very useless. That is something that all the experts have to call for. It is not a matter of politics. It is not a matter of discussion. It is a matter of whether we could survive or not. So, opening the electricity market is something that we have to do. And rather than just taking some good programs or policies, we have to clearly send some signal that we have to open the market. Thank you.
It seems like you studied a lot, and thank you very much for your analysis. And I'd like to ask the presenters to make short comments to the discussions made by the discussants. Professor Kim, thank you very much for your comments. I would like to share with you what I felt while listening to the comments. As Professor Chun mentioned, I agree with many of the comments he mentioned. He mentioned sector coupling as a way to solve the curtailment of output. And we need to think about if we send surplus electricity to another energy sector, then we have to change the supply and demand plan. So gas and hydrogen sectors, they need to have a strategy, kind of common strategy that apply to all of them. Now we have different supply and demand plan for each of the energy resource sector. So how can we solve those problems? How can we make coordination among different energy sectors? There must be someone at the center doing the preparation and planning. This will be directly related to energy security. And as Dr. Kwanghoon mentioned, I agree with him, and I would like to add on that. The strategic reshaping of the current electricity market and industry will be at a higher level than the first, second, and third industrial structure reform we made before in the electricity sector. With the increase of renewable energy and hydrogen and so on, we will have to reshape or reorganize the electricity industry and the structure. But we need to be careful not to get into trouble. And I feel that we need to have a strong commitment to this. Thank you very much for the good comments. And it seems that you made up for the elements that we didn't mention during presentation. Carbon neutrality can be perceived from perspectives, short-term perspectives and long-term perspectives. During discussion, you mentioned that we have to open the retail market or energy selling market centered around demand. That is close to economic sector coupling. Economic sector coupling where demand is integrated with supply. This is the kind of market where the people on demand side can sell electricity. And if the price is not determined in the market, then we cannot operate such a system in the form of market-based system. In the end, the price will have to be determined by the market. For that, we need to open that market so that we can activate the economic sector, the sector coupling. And for each of the energy sector, we are operating those sectors in a rigid way. He took examples of hydrogen. Of course, we have the long-term roadmap. I don't mean that we have to solve the problems now, right away, but we need to create channels to to enable possible connection among different sectors. That's one of the things that I wish for. I have not yet received questions online. And in the session, I feel that we have dealt with this issue from a wide range of perspectives. And in terms of national grid, you made comments centered around the electric system operation. Now, in our market in Korea, price signal is not being created. You mentioned that sector coupling is a must for achieving carbon neutrality because energy and the heat generation in an efficient way requires the sector coupling. So it will be good if we create energy from the surplus renewable energy at lower cost. And if it costs a lot, then it will not be effective. So Professor Kim mentioned the issues with the market. And I feel that that is related to the issue of sector coupling. In fact, creating market is not everything we need to do. We have to open the market where people sell electricity. In this regard, we need changes in the market. Dr. Kwanghoon also mentioned this aspect. So far, some of you may have heard of this for the first time. 2025, until 2025, we have only 3 years. The UK also announced that it will achieve a carbon-free economy, and it has made a lot of preparations to achieve that. Many people, the same is true for Korea, and many people think that it is impossible to achieve carbon-free economy in short period of time, but that's not 100% true. And there have been many preparations made so far to achieve carbon-free economy. And I actually personally wanted to ask a lot of questions in the session, but I hope that we could have more opportunities like this to learn more from each other.